The pilot thought he was some kind of sky god and kicked me off the flight for my inappropriate look. People stared, cameras rolled, but no one expected how this would end. Because when you have the right number in your phone, planes don't take off without you. But let's start from the beginning. Takeoff on the edge. Los Angeles International Airport. The place reeked of overpriced coffee, corporate despair, and the crushing weight of delayed flights. Travelers dashed around like caffeinated hamsters, juggling overpriced luggage and last-minute calls to people who, let's be real, probably weren't even listening. In the middle of the chaos, one man stood still, completely unfazed. Henry Woods, 58 years old, black, and exuding the kind of confidence that made lesser men nervous. A Wall Street veteran, the guy had the sharp jawline and steely presence of someone who had closed more deals than most people had hot meals. But instead of his usual tailored power suit, today he had gone casual. Denim jacket, sneakers, and the pièce de résistance. A bright red cap embroidered with the words, "Make America Great Again." Oh yeah, that cap. Meanwhile, up in the cockpit, Captain Bradley Pierce, a 40-something white dude with a face that permanently screamed, "I peaked in high school," scanned the passenger list. His gaze snagged on a name with a VIP tag next to it. "Fantastic. Another entitled millionaire," Pierce muttered under his breath as he tugged at his uniform, already annoyed before even stepping out of the cockpit. Down at the boarding gate, the situation had already started rolling downhill. "Sir, I'm afraid we can't allow you to board," announced an airport security officer, a gray-haired guy who had clearly seen too much nonsense in his lifetime, but somehow still found new reasons to be exasperated. Henry peered over his glasses, unfazed. "And why exactly is that?" "Captain's orders. Passengers wearing politically provocative attire are not permitted to board. Company policy." Heads turned. A few people took their phones out, because this was 2024, and no injustice went unrecorded. Henry let out a slow, amused chuckle. "Oh, we're doing fashion policing now? What's next? Pre-flight personality evaluations?" At that moment, Captain Pierce emerged from the jet bridge like a self-appointed sheriff. The second he saw Henry, his expression soured into that special kind of discomfort certain people get when forced to interact with someone they've spent their whole lives pretending doesn't exist. "Sir, I'm not allowing you to board my plane dressed like that," Pierce declared, his voice as flat as day-old soda. "Your attire is disruptive and could cause unnecessary tension among passengers. I won't risk that." Henry tilted his head, eyes gleaming with something between amusement and pure disbelief. "Let me get this straight. You won't let me board because you personally don't like my hat." "Exactly." A murmur swept through the crowd. Someone whispered, "That's discrimination." Others just smirked, waiting for the drama to escalate. Henry exhaled slowly, then pulled out his phone. "All right, we're doing it this way." He dialed a number and brought the phone to his ear. "Hey, Carl. Small situation here. I'm at the terminal, and apparently the captain of my flight has decided he's the Supreme Court. Do me a favor. Find out who owns this airline and let's see what they have to say." Captain Pierce barely flinched. He'd seen rich guys pull the "do you know who I am" stunt before. It never worked. "Sir, your flight is leaving without you," Pierce stated, voice clipped and smug. "I suggest you book another one." Henry grinned, slipping his phone back into his jacket pocket. "Oh, I don't think this flight is going anywhere." Pierce scoffed and spun on his heel, marching back to the cockpit, mentally congratulating himself for putting another arrogant passenger in his place. What he didn't realize was that he had just made the worst mistake of his career. Los Angeles International Airport was buzzing with tension. The air was thick with the smell of burnt coffee and overpriced perfume. But all eyes were locked onto one scene. The man in the red cap, standing firm while chaos started to bubble around him. Henry Woods wasn't new to confrontations. You don't spend decades in high-stakes business without learning how to handle people who think they can push you around. But this was next-level ridiculous. The security guy, who looked like he just wanted his shift to end, was shifting nervously. The airline manager, Terry, was sweating through his cheap polyester suit. And Captain Pierce? Oh, he was nowhere to be seen. Probably back in the cockpit, thinking he'd won. Henry exhaled sharply, pulled out his phone and dialed. When the call connected, he didn't bother with pleasantries. "Carl, I need a favor." The voice on the other end was calm but carried the weight of authority. "What's going on?" Henry glanced at the gate agent, then at Terry, who was still pretending he had control over the situation. "I'm at LAX. My flight's about to leave. Only problem? I'm not on it. Some overzealous pilot decided he doesn't like my hat." A pause. Then Carl spoke again, voice dripping with something close to amusement. "Oh, that's interesting." Henry smirked. "Yeah, I thought you'd say that." Carl didn't waste time. "Give me 5 minutes." Henry ended the call and slid his phone back into his pocket. Then he turned to Terry, who looked like he wanted to disappear. "You still standing here?" Henry asked, tilting his head. "Shouldn't you be figuring out how to fix this?" Terry stammered, then took a deep breath. "Mr. Woods, I assure you, this is just a misunderstanding." Henry held up a hand. "Spare me the corporate script, Terry. This isn't a misunderstanding. This is a pilot on a power trip, and you, my friend, are about to be in the middle of something much bigger than you signed up for." Just then, Henry's phone buzzed again. He checked the screen. One-word message. "Handled." And that's when everything shifted. Exactly 30 seconds after Henry got the message, a new energy swept through the terminal. Gate agents suddenly straightened their posture. Security personnel started exchanging glances. Terry's face turned a shade paler. Then, a voice crackled over the gate intercom. "Attention, flight crew of 217. Please hold all boarding procedures. A supervisor is en route." Oh, now it was getting good. Passengers murmured, some excited, some confused. Henry simply smiled and crossed his arms, waiting. 2 minutes later, a woman in a navy blue blazer appeared, walking with purpose. She had the unmistakable look of someone who didn't have time for nonsense and wasn't about to tolerate it now. Terry practically tripped over himself trying to greet her. "Ma'am, She cut him off with a raised hand. "Save it." Then she turned to Henry. "Mr. Woods, I sincerely apologize for this inconvenience. Your boarding has been reinstated." Terry blinked. "But—" She shot him a look that could have frozen fire. "Not another word." Henry, ever the gentleman, gave her a polite nod. "Appreciate it." As the gate agent hurriedly reprinted his boarding pass, Captain Pierce finally decided to make a reappearance. His expression was a mix of confusion and barely concealed frustration. "Excuse me, what's going on here?" he demanded. The supervisor didn't even look at him. "You're being relieved from this flight, Captain." The man went rigid. "Excuse me?" Henry stepped forward, adjusting his cap. "You heard her." Pierce's jaw clenched. "You can't do this." The supervisor finally turned to face him. "Actually, I can, and I just did." Henry took his freshly printed boarding pass, tipped his hat to the now silent Pierce, and walked toward the jet bridge. The passengers? Some were whispering, others were smirking. A few even clapped. Henry didn't need to say another word. He had already won. What would you have done in Henry's place? Would you have stood your ground or walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you or someone you know ever faced a similar situation? Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like if you believe these stories need to be told. This story was created not to spark conflict, but to shine a light on injustice and make the world a better place. Your voice matters.